Good evening and thanks for joining us. Tonight, a possible construction scandal has come to light. It involves a redevelopment project at the University of Hong Kong's High West site. The whistleblower worries structural problems could ensue, while HKU says follow-up work is underway. This is the University of Hong Kong redevelopment site in question. Located on Pak Fu Lam Road, the project is expected to complete next year. Revealing the alleged shoddy works online is construction engineer Jason Poon, who chairs concern group Chinet Monitor. He said honeycomb-like unevenness could be seen on some concrete beams and columns on 2 floors of the building. There are also exposed steel bars. One of the load-bearing ceiling beams strewn with holes and cracks. Jason Poon said he knew that project engineers have filed complaints that workers at the site did not follow the protocols of using concrete vibrators, a tool that helps eliminate air bubbles in the slabs. The whistleblower believes that has likely led to the shoddy concrete quality and would eventually compromise the building's load-bearing capacity. Slamming HKU for failing its gatekeeping role, Poon said the case has been reported to HKU several times, but the situation has not improved. He urged the buildings department to intervene. HKU Student Union magazine Undergrad wrote that the construction project was undertaken by contractor Aggressive Construction Company. The Undergrad article said they acquired a report which revealed that the project's consultant has criticized the shabby engineering quality 4 times since late April. A warning too on possible structural defects. HKU meanwhile said follow-up action is underway.
We are closely monitoring and we are aware of this situation, and we are working with the contractors as well as the government and together. So we will very soon, have some result to tell our media friends and so on. But university is very serious about the construction safety and our standard.
The redevelopment project is expected to include 4 dormitory blocks, providing some 1,300 places for student or staff accommodation. 2 girls aged 2 and 4 respectively are suspected to have accidentally consumed drug-tainted candies belonging to their father and were sent to hospital. The father has been arrested. Their mother notified authorities this morning at around 10, saying that her daughters mistakenly took their father's suspected weed gummies. The police later arrested a man who is in his mid-20s on suspicion of child neglect. The 2 girls are receiving treatment at Tuen Mun Hospital. A 56-year-old woman has confessed to 11 counts of child abuse in the 2021 case at a Mong Kok Children's Residential Home. She was sentenced to 27 months in prison. Chan Lai Kun was convicted of performing violent acts on 6 children between November and December 2 years ago at Mong Kok's Hong Kong Society for the Protection of Children Residential Home. A total of 34 individuals have been charged since the abuse cases were uncovered in late 2021. Starting today, the Transport Department will step up efforts to monitor possible abuse of the public transport fare concession scheme, with authorities saying legal action could be taken. Some residents and lawmakers believe such high-profile action by the government will have only limited effects on preventing illegal use. Timothy Lee tells us more.
At Diamond Hill Station, MTR staff could be seen holding up signs reminding passengers to use appropriate tickets when entering the station. Starting today, the Transport Department deployed its personnel along with public transport operators and outsourced security guards to tackle cases of abuse of the city's $2 public transport discount scheme, which is only for residents aged 60 or above. They have been sent to a number of MTR stations, bus stops, and ferry piers across the city, where they perform random checks on identity, Octopus, and Joy U cards of those using the public transport discount. Several MTR passengers shared their views on the new measure. This man said residents would naturally refrain from illegally using the discount with such high-profile patrols around. While this woman believes the action taken by the Transport Department would only serve as an effective deterrent for a limited time. These views were echoed by lawmaker Michael Tian, who added that authorities should perform such monitoring duties in plain clothes instead of wearing uniforms. As of yesterday, the MTR increased the fine for illegally using the discount from $500 to $1,000. According to the Public Bus Services Regulations, passengers could be fined $2,000 if they fail to pay the appropriate transport fee. A number of bus operators said if cases of payment abuse were found, the passengers involved would be made to pay the correct price. The Transport Department reminded residents that serious payment abuse cases could result in jail time. Timothy Lee, TVB News.
Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu has made his first public appearance since a failed mutiny over the weekend aimed at overthrowing him. The whereabouts of Yevgeny Prigozhin, head of the Wagner private military group, are unknown after he agreed to move to Belarus following his initial threat to march 25,000 of his fighters to Moscow. Meanwhile, opinion is divided on how the incident will affect Russian President Vladimir Putin's hold on power. Nazvi Karim has more.
Calm on the streets of Moscow. Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu, a key target in the weekend's failed rebellion, visits troops at an undisclosed location, as if nothing happened. And Moscow's forces continue to pound Ukrainian positions on the front lines of the war. Russia, it appears, is back to normal after the aborted mutiny. In a chaotic 2 days, Yevgeny Prigozhin, head of Russia's Wagner private military group, was heading to Moscow with his fighters, determined to dismantle the defense ministry. But he ended up striking a deal with Russian President Vladimir Putin, in which Prigozhin would move to Belarus and all charges related to his armed rebellion would be dropped. But the big question in the aftermath of the failed coup is whether the incident would weaken or strengthen Putin's hold on power after 24 years as Russia's strongman. Most Western politicians and analysts say it undermines Putin's influence.
One more example of Putin just being out of time and having consistently poor judgment and making mistakes.
China's Global Times said talk of Putin's position being weakened is merely Western hype, while the Foreign Ministry said today the aborted rebellion was Russia's internal affair. Spokesperson Mao Ning said Russia was a strategic partner and that China supports Russia in maintaining national stability and achieving development and prosperity.
Well, in my view, I don't think that Putin's reputation will suffer greatly because Putin enjoys support inside the country. And yesterday, it has become clear when some of the armed forces refused to join the Wagner group. So I don't think that his rule will be undermined through this one incident.
Ukraine, though, is taking heart from the short-lived mutiny. President Volodymyr Zelensky said in his nightly address that he had spoken to U.S. President Joe Biden and other leaders about the rebellion and knew how to respond. It has also provided a morale boost to Ukrainian troops on the front lines as they continue their counter-offensive in the east to retake territory captured by Russia last year. Nazvi Karim, TVB News.
Australia's top court has dismissed Russia's application for an injunction that would have prevented Moscow's proposed new embassy being evicted from a site in the national capital, Canberra. Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese welcomed the decision. This man, described by Russia's lawyer as a diplomat, had been living on the site in a portable cabin since last week as a security guard protecting the compound. Parliament passed emergency legislation on June 15th that terminated Russia's lease on the largely empty block on security grounds because the new embassy would have been too close to Parliament House. High Court Justice Jane Jago described Russia's challenge on constitutional grounds to a law terminating the lease as weak and difficult to understand. Albanese said he expected the Russians to leave the site.
Can I say that the government welcomes the High Court's decision in opposing the Russian application this morning. The court has made clear that there is no legal basis for a Russian presence to continue on the site at this time, and we expect the Russian Federation to act in accordance with the court's ruling.
The U.S. Coast Guard has confirmed it will lead the American investigation into the cause of the Titan submersible disaster. It will determine what caused the submersible to implode and can recommend civil or criminal charges. Investigators are working with partners from other countries of the people who died: Canada, France, and the UK. David Garrett has more.
The Coast Guard has officially convened a Marine Board of Investigation. It is the highest level of scrutiny the US Coast Guard can sanction. The aim is to determine what happened, when it happened and how things went wrong when the OceanGate Titan submersible imploded under the sea. The chief investigator believes they can salvage wreckage despite the hostile environment 4 kilometres below the surface.
The NBI is currently in its initial evidence collection phase, including debris salvage operations at the incident site and evidence collection in coordination with Canadian authorities in the port of St. John's, Newfoundland.
The inquiry can recommend charges or changes to the law. They say their main aim is to make sure such a disaster never happens again.
The board will first and primarily work to determine the cause of this marine casualty and the 5 associated deaths. The NBI, however, is also responsible for accountability aspects of the incident, and it can make recommendations to the proper authorities to pursue civil or criminal sanctions as necessary.
US authorities are working with international partners of the countries of the men who died. French and British marine experts will take part in the probe. The Canadian Transportation Safety Board and Royal Canadian Mounted Police investigations are already underway. US investigators have been involved with the Canadians in interviews with the crew of the Polar Prince. Titan's mothership docked in the port of St. John's Saturday.
Upon completion of this investigation, the NBI will issue a report to the Commandant of the Coast Guard, Admiral Linda Fagan, with the evidence collected, the facts established, its conclusions and recommendations.
The US Coast Guard took the opportunity to tell the public they're there to save lives and reminded everyone the sea can be dangerous.
And every weekend there are risks that are taken as people go to the water with inadequate safety gear, with inadequate training, or boating while intoxicated. But we still answer the call.
David Garrett, TVB News.
An innovative local firm and a Chinese university academic collaborated to launch a $200 million joint venture for the early detection of multiple types of cancer. This is by far the largest private life sciences deal in Hong Kong history. The founders hope the detection can change the lives of millions of cancer patients around the world. Mimosa Ngai tells us more.
Cancer has always been a serious global health problem, causing around a staggering 10 million deaths each year worldwide. Among them, about 6 million are from Asia. In post-pandemic Hong Kong, a local life sciences company has invested $200 million to develop early detection screening for multiple types of cancer. The technology that is used in the screening is called Fragma, developed by Dennis Low, an academic from CUHK.
So basically the approach we're using is to use something called epigenetics. That is, the DNA sequence doesn't change, but there's some modification of the genome which changes. And the modification is like when you're typing a Word article on a computer. It's like different font size, font color, etc. So basically the cancer genome will have this sort of modification.
The professor added such an epigenetics-based cancer test will produce a much more accurate result. The next phase of the project will be a multi-country 5,000-patient clinical trial, focusing initially on lung and liver cancer in Asia, such as the mainland. How important is early cancer screening to patients then?
A majority of cancers are actually diagnosed too late, where the survival rates are very dim and dire. So if you think about it, if you're detecting a cancer at stage 3 or 4, your survival rates will be approximately 20%. But if you're able to detect it early, let's say stage 1 or 2, your survival rates increases to up to 89%.
While there may be concern over the costs of screening, Yuan said the affordability of the tests has been taken into consideration.
One key aspect is affordability. So we aim to push this out into the market by 2025 with a consumer price or patient price of less than $200.
The CEO plans to expand the current test by 2027 to detect over 10 different cancers. Mimosa Ngai, TVB News.
Meanwhile, a recent study proved that the BioNTech and Sinovac vaccines are efficacious in reducing death and severity of illness caused by Omicron variants of COVID-19. Celine Chan reports.
Hiding in the bone marrow, T cells fight the viruses that attack your body. You're less likely to die from or suffer from severe illness caused by a virus if your T cells can remember it. Scientists from the Chinese University of Hong Kong monitored the situations of 659 participants. They discovered the presence of memory T cells for Omicron in all the vaccinated participants' blood samples. This means both the Sinovac or BioNTech vaccine can elicit effective T cell responses and effectively prevent severe cases and death. These memory T cells would be reactivated every time a person gets infected, offering protection for a long period of time. Some people are reluctant to take the jabs because they're ineffective in preventing infection after the emergence of COVID-19 variants.
We are now recommending vaccination not to prevent infection because we are still using first and second generation vaccine, right? So we are relying on the T cell response. And the T cell response is not affected by extensive changes in the spike protein. It is still effective in preventing us from getting severe disease, hospitalization, and death.
Hui called on the high-risk groups to get a booster shot 69 months after their infection or last jab to make sure the T cell responses will continue to be effective. Celine Chan, TVB News.
Customs officers have made the biggest raid in Hong Kong history. The record-breaking smuggling bus saw around $1.5 billion worth of goods seized. Captured contraband goods include 1 billion new circuit boards, 25 tons of dried seafood, and 20,000 bottles of red wine. Also seized were 27,000 music records with vinyl records. Declared as paper pulp, the items were seized earlier this month at the Kwai Ching container terminals on board an ocean-going vessel. Officers believe the goods were to be smuggled to the mainland via Singapore. A 45-year-old logistics company manager has been arrested. If not busted, the smuggled goods could evade taxes totaling some $600 million. And that's the news. Thank you for watching.